None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. And there are people still in darkness, and they just can't see the light. If you don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right. We got to try to be each other. Let our brothers know.
Try to pull it up on your email.
Got to get the message, send it out loud and clear. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. It's a simple truth. We all need just to hear and to see. None of us are free. None of us are free. Now I swear, salvation isn't too hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We've got to join together in spirit, heart, and mind, so that every soul who's suffering will know that we're not alone. None of us are free. None of us are free, y'all. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. If you just look around you, you're gonna see what's there. Cause the world is getting smaller each passing day. Now it's time to start making changes. And it's time for us all to realize that the truth is shining bright right before our eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free.
Cindy said nice shirt.
None of us are free.
She said nice shirt.
None of us are free.
Cindy said nice shirt.
Lord have mercy. Oh, let me say it, God. One of us is chained, none of us are free. Well, I gotta shout about it. Oh, none of us are free. None of us are free. One of us is chained, one of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us is chained, none of us are free.
Yes, that is Solomon Burke bringing us into our show this morning with None of Us Are Free. And we'll be talking more about that in just a minute as we continue this conversation with Community Voices, where you are live at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know without a shadow of a doubt, we understand that there are so many other platforms that you could be listening to, so many other voices that could be in your ear right now, so many other people that can be companioning you on your journey wherever you're going. But you are here with us at 88.3 FM KABF, and we are grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining us in this space. The phone lines are already open at 501-433-0088, and we will get into the discussion in a little while. But I just want to make sure that I make room for your illustrious co-host, the pastor. In the house. Won't you greet us this morning?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. I hope everybody having a great morning.
Just so happy to be here. Excuse me. Just want to remind people of a fundraising event that's coming in on May 6th at 6 o'clock p.m. in St. Michael's Episcopal Church. The People's Celebration Together We Rise is a fundraiser for KBF in conjunction with Marquis Hunt and the Flow and Just Talk Consulting. It's going to be a great opportunity for you to come out and celebrate the volunteers who take the time to come here to KBF 88.3 FM every week to do shows, to enlighten, empower, and educate the audience, our listening audience. So you'll hear more about it as we move towards May 6th, which is next Saturday. And the address is 12415 Cantor Road at St. Michael's Episcopal Church. Want to see all of you there. And if you can't be there, you know there are different ways you can help support KBF 88.3 FM. You can call 501-372-6119, and you can give your pledge or donation over the phone. If it's for the People's Celebration, please make sure you tell whoever answers, more than likely to be John Kane, the legendary John Kane. Make sure you tell them this is for the People's Celebration. You can also go online and you can, while you're there, at www.kbf.org and look at our new website. Been some changes, still doing some improvements, but you can click on the donate button while you're there. Become a sustaining member of KBF. Your monthly contribution help goes to the sustainability of KBF. Or you can send a check or a money order to 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, 72206. And make sure in that check or money order you write for the People's Celebration. If you want to come and do it in person, hey, come by the station at that same address, and we'll make sure that for your participation in the People's Celebration that you won't leave empty-handed, that we'll make sure you leave with something to show that you stopped by KBF. Or you can just call one of your favorite shows, one of your favorite hosts at 501-433-0088, and you can give your donation or your pledge to them. And remember, if it's for the People's Celebration, make sure that you let that host know that is for the People's Celebration. So that's my announcement, Denise.
Well, we do have a couple of more announcements that we also want to share with you on today. This Saturday, April 29th at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3 p.m., I will be facilitating a conversation at the Sanctuary, 520 East 16th Street, right here in the city of Little Rock, 72202. We will be having this conversation at the intersection of faith and HIV. We'll be asking the question, where is the church? How is the church responding to those of us who are living with HIV, those of us who are in your congregations, those of us who are in your neighborhood, those of us who are in your schools, those of us who are right beside you in line, right behind you or in front of you in the grocery store line. There are people among us who are living with HIV, and we want to know how the church, how the faithful, how those who believe in some higher power is responding to this epidemic, and how we are going to work together to end the epidemic. The former President Trump issued an initiative that said that we want to make sure that we are reducing the number of infections by 75% in the year 2025. Where are we on that journey, and what will it take for us to get there? So these are conversations, these are questions, these are dialogues that we will be having from 1 to 3 p.m. on this Saturday, April 29th, right here at 520 East 16th Street in the city of Little Rock in the state of Arkansas, 72202. So we'll be looking forward to those of you who would want to show up for that. And if you need more information, that's fine. Hit me up at 228-236-7440. Again, that's 228-236-7440. Want to remind you that every Thursday night at the Legacy Lounge on Bowman Road, right here, right behind on John Barrow, right behind Sims, you can go and you can have karaoke and open mic. Some of you know how talented you are. You know how brilliant you are with your instruments, your vocal instrument, with your other instruments, with your talent, with your spoken word, and you are invited to karaoke open mic night every Thursday at 7 p.m. You also know that there is an event happening on the 30th at the Legacy Lounge, which is for those of you who want to have like a jam session, all musicians, all artists, all vocalists, you are invited to come out on that Saturday at 10 p.m. to the Legacy Lounge so that you can be showcased in that place. Along with the People's Celebration on May 6th, there's also an event that's sponsored by Women in the NAACP. There will be 4 guest speakers, one of whom is our very own Ruby Welch. I don't know the other speakers, but I do know Ruby. And so we invite you to join them at 9 a.m. from 9 to 2. Then you can hang out a little bit in the city and then show up for the People's Celebration at 6 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you at all of those events. These are just ways that you can make sure that you are engaged in what is happening on in and around you in this city and beyond. I see, we want to say Hotep. I see you low on Facebook. Cindy's on Facebook. And here's Charles from Uganda, from Kampala, Uganda. Greetings to Liberated Connections. That's my 501c3 that is in partnership with the Kids Infant Care School in Uganda. And we continue to fight with hatred here. And so yesterday, Charles let me back up. Charles is fighting for his life in Uganda because he is a member of the LGBTQ community and they are coming for him. But they are not just coming for him, they are coming for his livelihood. So the business, his school that he is what we would call the principal of, they have different names for it in Uganda, but there's a school where he is serving over 180 orphans. They're people that, children that do not have homes, children that do not have parents, children that do not have food, little girls that do not have sanitary napkins, and we are in partnership with them every single month. And now that livelihood is being threatened because Uganda has declared that anybody who identifies as LGBTQ is a criminal, and that crime of being LGBTQ is punishable by life imprisonment. And so we are working with him to fight against this injustice, to fight against this discrimination. And so we want to let you know that they were in court on yesterday, talking people who are filing the charge against him have to come and they have to offer whatever support or evidence they have for their charge. They're having that conversation, and then Charles has to show up again on the 28th. So we will keep you posted as to what is happening. But right now we are entering into the trial phase of what is going on in Uganda. A lot of times we think about these places being far, far away and people we don't know, and this is happening to them. It doesn't have anything to do with us. But because of this global platform that is KABF 88.3 FM, we are in connection. We are in relationship. We are living into the spirit of Sawubona, the oneness that binds us together in our humanity. And we will keep you posted all along the way. So we say thank you to Charles for showing up in the space on this morning. So those are the announcements that I have for you on this day. Oh, I do have an announcement from Dana Dossett. I want to see if I can pull this up. They are hiring. Those of you who are looking for a job, the city of Little Rock is hiring. She finally has 4 manager level jobs available. And there is a community programs resources manager, a community programs development manager, a community programs operations manager, and a community violence intervention manager. So those 4 jobs are available for you to apply. I have the link. I will share it with you on Facebook just to make sure that you know that there are some jobs available to you. For those of you who are seeking employment, Dana Dossett offers this opportunity through her department in the city of Little Rock, and we want you to apply if you feel so led. So again, my number is area code 228-236-7440. You can text me, you can find me on Messenger, you can email me at Just Talk Consulting or Dr. Denise Dr. Denise Donnell 38 @gmail.com. There's all numbers of ways, plenty of ways. And if you don't remember any of that, you can call up to the station and they'll give you the information. So we want to make sure that you know what's available to you so that you can figure out how to plug in a way that makes you feel that your voice is being heard, you are being seen, and you are being respected, and that your life is being honored. And the last thing I want to do is bring us into the conversation that's grounded in Solomon Burke's None of Us Are Free by reading the tidbit from the Equal Justice Initiative. I want to read the tidbit that is from the Equal Justice Initiative. We do this every single Tuesday, and I want to read what's happened. I want to read what happened. Actually, I want to read what happened on the 24th. Today's the 25th, I know, but I want to read what happened on the 24th in the year 1877. In the year 1877, on April 24th, federal troops withdraw from Louisiana, marking the end of Reconstruction. On April 24th in 1877, federal troops withdraw from Louisiana, marking the end of Reconstruction. It was important for me today to lift up that particular tidbit because the end of Reconstruction was the era that was ushered in after the Civil War to try to create some balance among the races. So you had Black people and white people who were set against each other in the Civil War. You had the South versus the North. You had white people who were declaring that it was the law of God to have people enslaved, and that people who were enslaved would be enslaved forever, that children and their children's children and their children's 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 children would be slaves because they believed that that was what God had ordained them to do as the superior white race. And all of that was a lie, and all of that was a myth. And we fought the war, and the South lost, the Confederacy lost, and they haven't been able to get over it even until this day. Even now, they cannot get over it. But Reconstruction was ushered in after that to say, okay, now let's create balance. Now let's create justice. Now let's allow people who have the heritage, the ancestry of being enslaved to participate in every aspect of life, particularly the political realm. We have to be able to vote. We have to be able to be a part of the civic engagement process. And so record numbers of Black folks were elected into office, and that made white inhumanity even madder. Even the anger was escalated. The violence was escalated even more. So when we talk about this happening in 1877, when the federal troops withdraw from Louisiana to mark the end of construction, it is the beginning of our regression. And for that moment, for such a time as that season, we began to regress. We were trying to make progress along lines of racial, I was going to say reconciliation, but that's not the word that I want to use. But we wanted to make progress in racial relations. And we were not able to do that because we ended the era of Reconstruction so abruptly. And when we think about what's happening now, the laws that are being passed now, we continue to see this intentional regression. We continue to see this continual, perpetual fight of whiteness to say, no, we believe that we need to conserve, hence the conservatives, this ideology that says that white people deserve a space in society that's higher and far above anyone else, not just Black people, but anyone else. And so we continue to fight against this myth. And so this day on 1877 reminds us to pay attention to what's happening right now. And so I wanted to use that for our tidbit as we continue to move forward in this conversation that's rooted in Solomon Burke reminding us that none of us, not Black folks ain't free. None of us are free as long as one is chained. None of us are free. None of us is free. And so I wanted to talk about that because Solomon Burke, of course, is right. We center Blackness in this space. Tony has to sometimes remind folks that ain't nobody ever told you that KABF was a Black radio station. Ain't nobody ever told you that. But because of conversations like this where we center Blackness, people walk away feeling like, the only thing we are concerned with are Black. The only people we're concerned with are Black people. And just because Black people are centered doesn't mean that those are the only people that we are concerned about. So when Solomon Burke says none of us are free, that none includes the whole of society, the whole of humanity. Every person on this planet is included in that word none. None of us and it should be is if we're going to use the King's language, and we ain't got to use the King's language. I actually appreciate Solomon Burke breaking with the grammatical tradition to say none of us are free. As long as we understand that our freedom as Black people is interconnected with everybody else's freedom, if we can grasp that concept and stop fighting against folks, then maybe, just maybe, we can further our journey toward collective liberation. So Solomon Burke is complicated for me this morning, because even though I'm like, yeah, Solomon Burke, you better say that none of us are free, as long as there's one person who's being discriminated against, as long as there's one population of people that's being demoralized, as long as there's one community that's being dehumanized, none of us can be free. Not just none of the Black folks can be free, but nobody. White people, you ain't free either. And so he gives us the opportunity to have this conversation, to remind us of the spirit of Sawubona that says we are one, and by being one, we bring the whole of ourselves, all of our ancestry, all of our history, all of our legacy, all of our pedigree. We bring that into the space every time we show up. And Sawubona invites us to say, I appreciate who you are, I honor who you are, and I want to talk about who we need to be. I want to talk about the ways that we can grow together in this human bond that we experience, that we cannot extrapolate ourselves from. You can't stop being connected to me whether you like me or not. You can't stop being connected to me whether you hate me or not. You can't stop being connected to me whether you pass legislation that fights against my existence or not. We are still connected whether you like it or not. And so Solomon Burke reminds us of that as long as there are people that are being abused and used and traumatized just for who they are, whether it's because of the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or their gender identity, regardless of the why, as long as that behavior is being perpetrated against them, exacted upon them, then none of us are free. So those of us as Black people talking about we want liberation, our liberation is tied to everybody else's. And that's what Solomon Burke invites us to consider on this day. And Solomon Burke, I didn't know this. I mean, he was a huge voice in the 1960s in rhythm and blues and jazz. Do you know Solomon Burke? That's where you know more about music than I do. But I was really excited to learn about him. But he didn't get the airtime. He didn't get the acknowledgement. He didn't get the celebration that he so deserved. Do you know why?
I think you had these standard names in rhythm and blues, B.B. King, Albert King, and Solomon Burke. Back then they called it Chitlin Circuit.
The Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah, so that's where he gained, Helena, West Helena, Pine Bluff, down through Louisiana, those places. That's where he got his fame. That's where he was known. With some of the other blues artists, they were able to cross over. And some of, just like his song, None of Us Are Free, back then, in the 60s and the 70s, nobody wanted to hear that except Black people. So it wasn't a crossover. He didn't become the crossover success as others did.
When you say nobody wanted to hear that except Black people, said the mainstream was not concerned about the freedom and the liberation of Black people. So him singing this song seemed to be that he was catering, seemed to be that his audience was only Black folks, because white folks didn't want to hear that. We're not concerned about whether or not you feel free. We're not concerned about whether or not you feel liberated. We just want to focus on whatever we want to focus on. And so these kinds of protest songs, these kinds of songs that I really think this was the start. Like, this is what rap was really about. Like, at the beginning, it was conscious, where you used your gift of music, your gift of song, your gift of being a lyricist, your gift of being a psalmist. And so for Solomon Burke, I would call him a psalmist, because at the age, I want to say 12, he became a pastor. Like, Okay. Yes, I know that there's a lot of problems we can come up with about why a 12-year-old would become a pastor of a church. But nevertheless, I want to call him a psalmist because a psalmist, according to those of us who believe in this book or that we read the book, you don't have to believe in it, but we read this book that's called the Bible. The Psalms were prayers, and the prayers were then set to music. And so they would sing their prayers. And so when I think about a psalmist, like my favorite psalmist is Fred Hammond, among us now, contemporary. These are people who take their faith and they put it into words and then they add music to it. And then now it becomes a song, but the song is our prayer. The song is to whatever God it is that we believe is listening to us to say, God, I realize that I am not free. I realize that no one around me is free because there are people who are chained. And so Solomon, because he's so faithful, because he grew up in the church, he grew up in a church family, he became a pastor. Even until the day he died, he was in ministry through the church, making sure that people, especially children who had special needs, were getting the help that they deserve. And so I want to call him a psalmist in this moment. And so he's setting these words to music as a prayer to say, listen, we need to pay attention to the fact that we are fighting for the freedom of everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what identities the world has labeled you with. And so it's exciting to have this conversation. And when he talks about, Tony mentioned the Chitlin circuit, there was this area where these entertainers were basically they were performing along these in these particular spaces in the Carolinas. It was in
it was all through the South, through the Carolinas, through Georgia, through parts of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, New Orleans, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, and they were performing in like little we call them juke joints, little small out of the way clubs that Black people frequented, and so that's how they would make their money. That's how they would get their music out. And one of Clarksville, Mississippi, and New Orleans was places where they would end up, and it would that's how their music got out.
And so all along this, the Chitlin circuit, and what made it necessary was it was during the Jim Crow South. And so there were places where Black people were not allowed to enter. There were spaces where Black people were not allowed to be present in. And so this circuit created a realm of acceptance. If you go into this space, you know that your Blackness will be not only received, but your Blackness will be embraced. And so this is a moment for you to be amongst your people, loving on your people and being loved by your people. And it was a very important part of the livelihood, especially for musicians during this time. And that was the Chitlin circuit. But here's where Solomon Burke gets complicated for me. The reason he gets complicated is because he is an entrepreneur. I love that. Black folks know we can imagine some stuff. We can create. I am fascinated by the minds and the brilliance of Black people and how we can create from nothing. We can bring into existence something that's viable, something that's sustainable, something that is craved and desired by all people, not just us. And so I'm fascinated about that aspect of who we are in our Blackness. And so Solomon Burke is a forever entrepreneur. His entire life, he's an entrepreneur, which means that he makes his own business. He creates his own business. He is employed. He employs himself and he employs other people. He has his own business. But as a businessman, he's working primarily with, well, really only with Black folks because of the Jim Crow South. And yet he charges exorbitant prices for the goods that he supplies. And the Black people are like, now you know that what you are charging us is way too high for what we are receiving. You want to exploit us, those of us who are here in this space, because we are being exploited by white folks. Then we come into this space that's supposed to be our space. How dare you exploit us in this space? So Solomon Burke ends up getting banned from the Apollo Theater, not because he's not talented, not because he's not a draw for the people, not because he's not gifted and graced in the area of instrumentation with his voice. It's not because of that. It's because of the way he treats people through his business practices. And the man who was there, he was like, look, I'm not having this. You will not treat us this way in this space. I have the power to expel you. You are banned from the Apollo Theater forever and ever and always. And so I was thinking about that because I'm like, okay, now why would a Black person who's already being discriminated against turn around and discriminate against somebody else, particularly his own people? Why would Solomon Burke do that? And then I was like, look, let's not act like this is a Solomon Burke issue. Solomon Burke is not the only Black person who does this. We got Black people among us now that do the exact same thing. And I thought about it when I was watching that doggone commercial with Sarah Huckabee Sanders with the koozies. Have you seen her commercial where she's put her face on a beer can and she's got these koozies that she's selling for $15? Oh, y'all got to see this commercial. It's about real women. Real women don't have to fake it. And so this is her challenge. This is her pushback to Bud Light. The conversation with Bud Light, where Bud Light sent a case or whatever, sent some beer with the face of Dylan Mulvaney, who is a person of trans experience. So this transgender woman is on her face is on the beer can, and the conservatives lose their mind. And so now they're talking, you got Kid Rock who shows up on TV, who uses an AK-15 rifle to blow up the Bud Lights. He uses the F word and all of that in the commercial, saying he is stunning. Like, this is a whole campaign against people who are living the trans experience. And then, there's a law that Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed that says people who are trans female are not allowed to participate in women's sports. So all of this angst, all of this hatred, all of this push to say, no, people who are trans are not real. She comes out with this commercial and she creates this product that you can buy on her website, sarahforgovernor.com/shop. You can buy this koozie where it's a series. It's 4 governors who are white. It's 4 governors. It's Ivy from, whatever the 4 Republican.
Ivy from Alabama, Kate Reeves from Mississippi.
And it's women.
It's women.
It's only women. Yeah, and it's 4 of them. And so it's Kay Ivey, absolutely. She's from Alabama. It's Christy Noem from South Dakota. It's Kim Reynolds of Iowa, and it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders from Arkansas. And so when you look at these koozies, the first thing, of course, I notice is that all the women that they are showcasing are white, because the only governors that we have in the states are white. So right there, for Black people, that should tell you, before I start talking about Sarah Huckabee for governor, let me think about the fact that the world in which we live still does not recognize the political brilliance of Black folks as a whole, but particularly Black women, especially in the South. And then when you looked at this, I told you, every time Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes live, I get the notification on my phone. So I'm watching her still talking about this doggone Learns Act in a room that was created by ASU, Arkansas State University. And I had to change I had to turn my phone to find the landscape, to squint, to try to see, is it any Black people in this room? All you talking about this Learns Act, everything that you're doing is centered in this room about whiteness. These koozies are honoring these white governors who are women. And so here, all of this is in our face, saying that we are not paying attention to you as Black people. We are not paying attention to you as Black political, fierce minds that can lead us into a different way of living and loving. We're not paying attention to any of that, but we are coming against people who are not just transgender, but also LGBTQ. And then you got Black folks who say, yeah, you're going to hell if you LGBTQ.
So 2 things. The first thing is that not only did Arkansas pass that law, the House, the Republican House, passed the same law.
On the federal level.
It right now, it will not make it through the Senate. And if it does, President Biden said he was going to veto it. On the second thing, I think she is. I think they are paying attention to Black people. And that's why it's this real push, this real effort. What happened in Georgia with Stacey Abrams, what happened in Arkansas with former state senator Joyce Elliott in her run for Congress, they see that the black voice politically is rising up. So how do you stop it? Now what you have to do, you have to rise up white people. You talked about Reconstruction. So when the black political voice started to move, next thing you know, how do we change? And people don't understand when it came to Reconstruction, one of the, and I think it was, I want to say, was it Hayes or Jack, whoever was running for president, they made this compromise, said, we'll vote for you if you take the federal troops out of the South, which basically ended Reconstruction. So anytime the black political voice rises up, there's this effort from from whiteness, say we got to silence that voice. And how do you do it? You start doing stuff like the cruises. You start, doing things that will align with what a lot of black people will think, especially black people in the church. Hey, if we find that one connection that, hey, homosexuality and transgender, if we can connect that to the black voice, then that black voice is going to shift over to us. Now we got them, because now there's a common ground that we can stand on, and then we can use that to say, see, we're with you. We're in your corner. We hear you. But you know what? We ain't gonna give you no more, we ain't gonna give you no health care. We ain't gonna give you no living wage. We ain't gonna do nothing about your community. We ain't gonna do nothing about standing your ground. We ain't gonna do nothing about that. But we got you.
And so I agree with you that it's possible that they're paying attention to us, that they are paying attention to what black people are doing. I just am not sure I agree with you in the way that you say so. It is tied to voting though. See, they don't expect us to vote anymore. And so we still have black people among us even now who are talking about what's the point of voting. I don't see the point in voting. Voting doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. And so they are capitalizing on that. They know that there is a population of us who have gone to sleep as it relates to the power of our voice at the ballot box. And so, yes, they say, well, we're going to add, we already have them fighting against themselves by not voting. We already have them making sure that they do not make their presence known in the political realm. We've got them, not only do we not vote, we don't run for office. Most of the time we are when we look at the Democratic Party, and let me just talk about Arkansas in particular, when it's time for us to talk about the primaries, when we have, and very few people turn out for the primaries, let alone black folks, when we look at who's on the ballot, a lot of times Republicans are running unopposed. A lot of times throughout the entire state of Arkansas, there's county after county where white people are. It's only one person on the ballot, and we are running around looking, who can we even find? Who can we tap? We start having conversations with folks. Come on, we need you to run. And it's difficult for us to find a black person, regardless of your gender, regardless of whether or not you're even not non-binary. We can't find you willing to even enter the arena. So we got you not voting. We got you not running for office. And then we have this wedge issue. We say we know a way to keep black folks distracted. If we can keep you distracted, then you're not paying attention to everything else that's going on as a result of the legislation that we are passing, because we have the power, because you gave it to us when you chose not to vote. When people say I don't vote, they make it seem like, well, since I don't vote, then I didn't have anything to do with it. But every time you don't vote, that is a vote for your opposition. And so you are actually participating in the process by remaining silent. Silent is complicit. Solomon Burke says that when he's singing this song, None of Us Are Free. He says, if you don't speak on it, you might as well be saying that it's okay. If you don't say it's wrong, then what you are saying is that it is right. So the lack of our voice at the ballot box also plays in their favor. And so what Sarah Huckabee Sanders is saying is, I know just what you said, Tony, this is the South. We're the Bible Belt. So I know Black folks who are faithful, Black folks who call themselves Christian, Black folks who believe in Jesus. We know that they are going to be against homosexuality. They're going to be against LGBTQ. They're going to be against people of trans experience, which is all under that same umbrella. Then we know now we've got them on our side. And so you find yourself complicit in the system of whiteness because you're fighting a fight that ain't even yours.
And I think here's the big thing that a lot of Black people don't see. They don't see down the road. See, everything, the one thing I can say about whiteness, I can say about the Republican Party, they're not planning for today. They're not planning for tomorrow. They're planning for years down the road. They're planning that I want to make sure that whatever I do today is going to be in place 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And so when you look at the inactivity of Black people to vote, and as the shift started to happen, when you start talking about so many white districts that run opposed, because now you have gerrymandered the districts. Now you have where, what last year, before Sanders became governor, there was, when they redid the redistricting, you went from 17 primarily Black districts down to 11. You got rid of 6 predominantly Black districts where you know there was going to be a Black person that would be in the state house representing Black people. But you got rid of that and you gerrymandered. So now it's a predominantly white district. And because it's a predominantly white district, you have this mentality with a lot of Black people that what's the use of putting in the time, the effort, and the money if I'm going to get outvoted anyway by white people? There's not enough Black people, and I can't get enough white people to support me. All we have to do is look at what happened with Chris Jones. He clearly,
and Joyce Elliott.
Yeah, clearly they were the better candidates. But even if you took 100% of the Black vote, the Black people that voted for you, you've got to get a certain percentage of white people. And white people are like, you know what? You may be the best candidate. You may have the better platform. You may be able to move this state in a better direction. You may be able to come up with laws that will help everybody. You may come up with laws or policies that will unchain so many people. But I can't get past your color.
Yeah, but we have a record, though, where we see that white people will come alongside us and align themselves with the better policies. We see that through the two-time electorate of former President Barack Obama. Right? Mm-hmm. Black people alone could not have put President Barack Obama in office. And so this is what Solomon Burke is saying to us. None of us are free as long as one person is chained. So Black people in this community, in this world, we are chained. Trans people in this world are chained as well. But trans Black people are even more chained. And this is where I feel like we have to raise it to the level of consciousness for Black folks. You fighting against people who are transgender, but you got family members that look exactly like you. They got your own blood that came out of the same womb as you. And these people are of trans experience. And so here you are fighting this fight for the white people when you are fighting against your own folks. This is the white person's fight against transgender. This is not your fight. So why would you then say, those of you that's preaching against homosexuality, those of you that's talking about it, those of you that's telling, that's putting your children out of the house and trying to get them to go to church so that they can be saved. This is not your fight, because we are called, especially I feel like one of the reasons that I love, one of the things that I love so much about being Black is our ability to embrace, is our ability to say, we just want to love on you, baby. I don't care who you are. I don't know about other people's experience with Blackness, but my experience with Blackness, you come to somebody's house that's Black and you hungry, we gonna feed you. I mean, we are hospitable to sometimes to our own demise, and that is the truth. And so Solomon Burke reminds us that it is important we don't fall into the trap of discriminating against our own people who are already being discriminated against by white folks. We've got to be careful with how we handle each other. Let me get this call. Caller, you're live on the air at KBF 88.3. Thanks for calling.
Let's speak the love dog. This brother Sawubona. Looks like we just talked in a catch-22, especially about the voting bill. And I say it's because we are divided. If the hacks and the whacks keep us divided, we'll never get anywhere. That's why I always talk about people of color for more. If we could strategize one political party to hold our issues until, like I said, down to the final 2 or 3 or 4, then we probably could get something done. But our biggest deal is being divided by the hacks and the whacks. We say we stand in line and we still get left behind, standing in the longest line and still get left behind. Now we have to remember too, their covert action is to just ignore all of our issues. And I forgot what we were calling that, but benign neglect. Now their benign neglect will covertly just ignore our issues until we come on the same team. I always say teamwork make the dream work. So until we start talking about being on the same political team, we're going to get the same results. Again, peace and love to all.
Well, I agree that we need to be on the same team, especially politically, but this is my whole point, that the team that I want us to be on is Team Blackness. But you got Black people that's saying, I can't be on the team with you if you are Black and gay. I can't be on the team with you if you are Black and transgender. I can't be on the team with you if you are Black and a woman who thinks that she can preach from the pulpit. And so we divide ourselves among ourselves. Why? Because when we do that, it makes us complicit in the system of white inhumanity, because now, like Tony said earlier, they got us. They got us right where they want us. We so busy worried about who somebody's sleeping with that you're not voting for who you are in your Black existence. You so busy worrying about whether or not somebody has a penis or a vagina that you're not worried about whether Black people have a sustainable income, whether Black people can acquire wealth, whether Black people can have access to quality health care that's culturally sound. You're not worried about whether or not you can be a homeowner. You're so busy worried about the wrong thing. Who cares about your gender, your sexual orientation or your gender identity when you can't eat? Who cares when you have no place to live? We have people who show up on this show who are unsheltered, and you want me to argue with somebody over a koozie about whether or not I'm gonna pay $15 to prove that Sarah Sanders' face should be on a beer can? Anyway, don't people in the church say you shouldn't drink? She on a beer can. So now you're going to get this koozie to support this white woman drinking beer, but then you're going to go to church and teach Black people, oh, it's a sin to drink. You gotta be kidding me. We've got to pay closer attention to what is happening among us. And the way that we can do that is to find something to align ourselves on, to focus on, to unify around. And I'm suggesting that be our Blackness. Is that too hard? I mean, is that too much of an ask? Before you go, Tony, let me get this comment. So Leroy Springer says, in the beginning, the Republicans were Black. Okay. And so we want to honor our history, that Black people, my mama right now will be 87, I want to say in December. She'll be 87. And to this day, she is a Republican, because that is who she has always been, and it is rooted in our ancestry. So yes, we were Republicans until Lincoln, right?
No, we were Republicans until 60, I want to say 64, because
Did they give Lincoln credit for emancipating the South?
Yeah, he did, and so
and that's when we switched over.
Yeah, but the Republican Party of Lincoln is not the Republican Party now.
Right, which is why now, but see, one of the things that I appreciate about what Solar Beam says is that he calls them the hacks and the whacks, the Democrats and the Republicans. But what I feel when he says that, I don't call them hacks and whacks, I'm not getting into that part. But what I feel is that it's two sides of the same coin. When we talk about Democrats and Republicans in this society, and we think about the history that Springer is pointing us to, you got the same people that switch the names. You got people, how long ago was that where there were Republicans Democrats who decided they were going to now be Republicans? That was here in Arkansas, somebody did that, I want to say.
Here in Arkansas.
And he didn't have to turn around and run on a Democratic ticket. A Republican ticket. He just declared, I'm no longer a Democrat. So all the Democrats who voted for him, he's now Republican without having to go back through the electoral process. Right. So it's like people just decide to switch whatever they want to do. And so what does that mean? That means that we can't trust either party.
As you were talking a minute ago, I thought about the other night. I woke up and couldn't go back to sleep, so I'm flipping through the channels, and I come across the movie 2012. For those of you who may remember, it's the apostolistic.
Apostolic?
Apostolic.
A-P-O-S-T-O-L-I-C?
Apostolistic.
Is it about the end of the world?
Yeah, apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, apocalypse.
So
apocalyptic. Movie about the end of the world. And so if you've seen the movie, it's these earthquakes, all this is going on. The world is just messed up. And they build these big ships, they call them arcs, that's going to save humanity. Of course, there's only a certain amount of people that can get on these arcs. At the end of the movie, when it talks about how the earth has shifted, and they said that now instead of the Himalayas, which people say are the roof of the earth, they're the highest peaks in the earth. They said now the Himalayas are not the highest peaks. Africa is the highest spot on earth. They said Africa rose several thousand feet. So now everybody has to go to Africa. They aim their ships to go to Africa. And and one of the captains said, it's the Cape of Good Hope. We have to go to the Cape of Good Hope, which is Africa rises up. At some point in time, and this is the fear to me of white inhumanity. You talked about the entrepreneurship of Black people. You talk about resilience of Black people. You talk about how Black people have been on this earth for centuries, that most of what has happened on this earth has flowed through Black history. And when Black history rises up and the world has to go to Blackness for things, there is this dynamic that we have to stop it and we can't let it rise. But I believe, like you do, if Black people wake up and look at all the disasters going on around them in their lives and rise up as a collective, then we won't be on the bottom. People have to come to us.
Well, people already come to us. So this message from Cindy on Facebook, silence equals death. That's the AIDS slogan from NYC in 1987. And we think about, even when we talk about the epidemic of AIDS, it to me is the same as when we talk about the epidemic of opioids. As long as we center it in white bodies, we have a response. We have the world responding, because when Ryan White contracted AIDS, the whole world responded to this white man suffering from this disease. Now, when we say that the statistics skew towards Black men being the ones that are being infected at the higher rates, then we don't see the same response from the world. And so Blackness continues to be pushed aside as something that is not valued, something is not worth our time or our energy or our efforts. But not only do you have to come through blackness or come back to blackness. Everything began with this country is rooted in blackness. And one of the things that we probably need to stop saying is Black history. It ain't Black history. It's American history. If you are an American, your history is rooted in blackness. If you live in this country, your history is rooted in blackness. When you think about the world, it is rooted in blackness. So for us to rise up again, I'm feeling like rise from where? We've always been on the top. We've always been the ones that are the most all of these inventions that you see, most of them are, if you source them, they're sourced in blackness. When you see these people who have these franchises, they've made all of this money, they've made it because they've stolen things from Black folks. So Black folks always have been on top. You just don't want to recognize it. You just don't want to say it. You just want to bury that history so you can pretend like you have a culture. And if we don't stop it as Black folks, we are going to continue to be complicit in their agenda. We've got to stop focusing on stuff that doesn't matter. We got to focus on the fact that we are Black, we are divine, we are brilliant, we are everything that God created us to be. And God is just asking us, what y'all waiting on? I've already given you everything that you need to do what you need to do to be free. What you waiting on? We waiting on us to stop arguing about nonsense. That's what we waiting on. Thank you all so much for joining us for Community Voices. You have been live right here at KBF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. You got your girl Lola already in the house, so don't turn that dial for the next 2 hours so you can hear the joy, the jazz that fills you with joy and reminds you, because jazz is rooted in what? Blackness. So let's talk about that, people. Let's continue to remind ourselves of that. We'll be right back here for the workplace on Thursday from 9 to 10 with your host, the Pastor Tony Orr. We hope to see you then. We'll talk soon.